Welcome to episode 394 of the Selling Your Screenplay podcast. I'm Ashley Scott Meyers, screenwriter and blogger at sellingyourscreenplay.com. Today I am interviewing Brea Grant, who just wrote and starred in a feature thriller called Lucky. She's been acting for years, has a ton of acting credits, but this week we talk about her writing and how she was able to use her acting experience to help get this project produced. So stay tuned for that interview. If you find this episode valuable, please help me out by giving me a review in iTunes or leaving a comment on YouTube or retweeting the podcast on Twitter or liking or sharing it on Facebook. These social media shares really do help spread word about the podcast, so they're very much appreciated. Any websites or links that I mentioned in the podcast can be found on my blog in the show notes. I also publish a transcript with every episode in case you'd rather read the show or look at something later on. You can find all the podcast show notes at www.sellingyourscreenplay.com/podcasts, and then just look for episode number 394. If you want my free guide, How to Sell Screenplay in 5 Weeks, you can pick that up by going to sellingyourscreenplay.com/guide. It's completely free. You just put in your email address and I'll send you a new lesson once per week for 5 weeks, along with a bunch of bonus lessons. I teach the whole process of how to sell your screenplay in that guide. I teach you how to write a professional logline inquiry letter and how to find agents, managers, and producers who are looking for material. Really is everything you need to know to sell your screenplay. Just go to sellingyourscreenplay.com/guide. So a quick few words about what I've been working on. So we finally signed with a sales agent on the Rideshare Killer. And a sales agent is really just an intermediary between us and the distributor. But the idea is that these sales agents have long-standing relationships with the distributors. And so hopefully they can get our movie a little further into the pipeline than we would be able to do ourselves, since we don't necessarily have those same relationships with distributors. So right now, that's kind of our angle. Our festival run is basically winding down, and mainly just because it's been so disappointing, as I've been talking about on the podcast the last few weeks. Even the festivals we've gotten into have been a big disappointment. Some of the festivals have been, postponed into next year. So at this point, we just figure we might as well get moving with distribution. I don't see a lot of coming out of the festivals for us. So as I said, we signed with this sales agent that we liked. So he's out trying to sell our movie. I mean, he's pretty confident. I mean, they're always confident in the beginning, but we'll see. But he's pretty confident that he'll be able to at least find some deals for us. So wish us luck, and we'll keep our fingers crossed, and hopefully we'll have distribution soon so everyone can check the film out. I've started to write a spec script, a sci-fi epic, which I mentioned a few weeks ago on the podcast. I'm starting to learn a little bit more about the Unreal Engine, which is a video game engine that can also be used to create films. So hopefully I'll have that spec done soon. That's given me something just creative to work on. I'm in the early stages, so, it could be a couple of months before I have a draft on that. And I think I mentioned this a couple of weeks ago, but if you have any experience with working with the Unreal Engine for film, definitely drop me a line. I'd love to hear what your experience with it is like. If you enter the contest, we are reviewing all the screenplays. We'll have a second round announcement September 27th, so keep an eye out for that. We got lots of great screenplays. I'm starting to send them out to all of our industry judges, get some feedback back from them. And as I said, we'll be making our first announcement of the second round scripts September 27th. I'm going to run my own festival next year. I think these festivals, as I've mentioned, are really just not very well run. So I'm kind of thinking I can add some value to the festival scene. If you've ever run a festival or volunteered at a festival or even just attended a lot of festivals, I'd love to hear from you what your experience is like. What are the things you liked? What are the things you didn't like? Really anything that could be potentially helpful to someone that's now planning their own festival. You have some experience in festivals, definitely drop me a line. The other thing is I'm planning on doing the festival basically like I do the contest, which is I'm going to get at least 2 people to view every submission. Obviously with scripts, it's readers reading the scripts. With the films, we'll be having people view it. So if this sounds something interesting, or you have any interest in being a viewer for the contest, drop me a line as well. I haven't figured out all the economics of it, how much I'm going to be able to pay for this, but there'll probably be some token amount that I can afford to pay for the first round viewers. But if you have any interest in that, just seeing some submissions through a film festival and then giving those movies a grade, I'll create some sort of a little scorecard for the film so that we can grade them and then start to make heads and tails about which of the ones that are the best fit for the contest. Anyways, any of this sounds interesting, definitely drop me a line. Again, it's just info@sellingyourscreenplay.com. So that's what I've been working on. Now let's get into the main segment. Today I am interviewing actor and writer Brea Grant. Here is the interview. Welcome, Brea, to the Selling Your Screenplay podcast. I really appreciate you coming on the show with me today.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
So to start out, maybe you can tell us a little bit about your background. Where did you grow up and how did you get interested in the entertainment business?
I grew up in Texas, in a small town in northeast Texas called Marshall. Then I didn't really know anyone in the industry. I went to college. I got a degree in an undergrad and a master's degree in American Studies, but decided I didn't want to do that anymore. And so I just moved to LA on a whim and decided to pursue. I moved out originally thinking I'd either pursue acting or producing. Those were the two things I was sort of interested in. And then my acting career took off. I was on Friday Night Lights, and then I did a season of the NBC show Heroes in 2008. And that kind of solidified me in the acting world for many years.
Okay, perfect. So let's dig into some of that. Maybe you can I get a lot of emails from people looking to move to LA. Maybe you can give us a quick, where did you land? And do you have any tips for people that are looking at moving to LA when they don't know anybody in the industry? Where do you think they should live? And just some sort of basic landing tips.
Oh my God. Well, I moved to LA in 2006, so it's very different.
Mm-hmm.
Now I don't know where to live. I live in Echo Park, which I think is great. I've lived there for a long time. But I just found a place on Craigslist and it worked out okay. My best friend at the time moved with me for a few months to get me settled. And yeah, I mean, you know, what I did when I first got to LA, I will say I kind of wasn't sure how long I was going to want to stay. I made I'm a big journaler and I like to kind of organize my life. So I made this big spreadsheet and I was like, okay, every day I have to do something to further my career here or else I shouldn't be here. Mm-hmm. So every day, I mean, pursuing acting, it was like, you know, am I going to go on an audition? Am I going to submit myself online for something? Am I going to, learn a monologue that I might need later? You know, things especially like very beginning actors sort of need to have to try to get tape or, you know, write a scene or something like that. And so that was sort of my beginning plan. So your very beginning plan. And then, you know, just trying to find, LA is such a spread out city. It's kind of a scary place to be, especially me being a real small town girl. And I very much am still. Mm-hmm. I like to know my neighbors. I like to have my posse that I hang out with all of the time. So it's kind of like finding that crew that you think you can trust and rely on. And it took me a lot of years. I would say it took me at least 5 years to find the people that I am currently friends with. And now I've been friends with them for, 10 years or so, and I can rely on them for anything. And they're the people I trust. And they kind of come from all different ranges of backgrounds and have different careers, like that. I mean, one is much more of an actress and one is much more of a producer. And we just kind of have all started relying on each other for stuff. And, finding those people you trust, I think, is really important. It's probably not the first people you'll meet. I feel like when I moved to LA, I had that, when you go to college and, the first few people you meet in your first class, you're like, these are going to be my best friends. And then, 6 months later, you're like, I don't even remember those people's names. And that's kind of how I feel about my first few years out there.
Gotcha. So let's talk about some of the first few credits. It looks like you did a feature first called You're So Dead, and then you mentioned Friday Night Lights. Just take us through, what are those initial first steps to actually getting into those auditions and getting cast on those projects?
So part of it was I took a lot of acting classes, which anyone, no matter what you're producing, if you're a writer, if you're a director, if you're an actor, you should be doing that craft as often as possible. So I took, I was in a lot of different acting classes. That very first movie, which I don't think ever came out and probably shouldn't ever come out, and hopefully is buried. I did a bunch of shorts and stuff, like student shorts and stuff like that. And I did that movie as well. And a couple other small movies that just, I don't think ever saw the light of day. And that was, I was in an acting class and got an agent and manager through that acting class, because a lot of classes in LA will set up sort of these workshop things where you go and you read for agents or managers, and that's what I did. I got one after being there. I actually had an agent in Texas because I was taking acting classes, who I kept for a long time, and they were great, and they found me in an acting class. And then I found my first manager out of an acting class. And in LA. I mean, I know a lot of people cold call and cold send stuff. I've never found any success of doing that. And then I mean, there's a lot of like online places. I'm not, again, like I've been out of the acting game for a minute and definitely haven't been submitting myself, but there are places you can definitely self-submit. And I mean, it's interesting too. I will say this, like, there are people that I know from like some of my first acting classes in LA 15 years ago. And like when I've been casting movies as a director, because now I write and direct mostly, they'll reach out and be like, can I audition for your movie? And I'm like, yes, because I remember you. I remember you're good. And like, so those connections are important and not necessarily like, maybe they're not important, 15 years ago, but they are the people that like you think about, 15 years later. Cause like, of course I remember these people from these classes. This was like a very like formative time for me as a creator in LA.
Yeah, for sure. So let's dig into your latest film, Lucky, which you wrote and also starred in. Maybe you can give us a quick picture log line. What is this film all about?
It's about a woman who is dealing with a sort of violent stalker. She keeps showing up to her house every night, and no one believes her. And then when they do start to believe her, they're like, yeah, of course, that's normal. This is just the way it is. So sort of, we've been calling it like a surrealist slasher movie. It's horror genre, but with a bit of a tongue-in-cheek approach.
I got you. And where did this idea come from? What was sort of the genesis of this story?
I mean, the themes in the movie are, I mean, it's a lot about violence against women, and I pulled a lot from, just being a woman living in America, but also a personal event that happened to me. And I think writing this movie was in part catharsis for me. It was me trying to deal with a violent event that happened to me with a stranger, and dealing with the courts, dealing with the police, dealing with all these systems that you have to go through when something happens to you like that. And so, I had something bigger to say, but also I wanted to deal with my own pain, which I think a lot of writers are doing all of the time, whether we realize it or not.
Yeah, for sure. So let's talk about your writing process a little bit. Where do you typically write? When do you typically write? Do you need to go to Starbucks and have that ambient noise? Do you have a home office? Are you the writer that writes first thing in the morning, or do you write in the middle of the night? What does just sort of your writing schedule look like?
No, first thing in the morning, every single day. Every day I get up. Sometimes I'll do a workout first and you have some breakfast and then do it. But if I'm on something that I'm really trying to finish, I get up before everyone else gets up, where no one can email me, no one can talk to me. My boyfriend is not awake. I walk the dog, and then I start writing until I'm done. I have a very strict schedule though, because I am a person who could write all day, every day. It would make me happy to do that, but I also know I think it would be counterproductive at the end of the day. So I very much have a goal every day of how much I'm going to write, what script I'm writing on, what is the project I need to do, and where I need to get. Like, usually for me, it's a page count. So I'm like, I know I could write 5 pages a day. I could, but they wouldn't be great. So I instead usually have a goal of 2.5 pages a day every morning, which means I pump out quite a few scripts, and then I start going back over them. Then the goals sort of change. I have a home office, but I like to write in my living room on the couch. I never use my office. And during the pandemic, I started going and writing in a park. That kind of helps me with my process. I meet a couple other writer friends there in the mornings. We get there somewhere between like 9 and 10:30. I've usually done a little bit of writing before they get there, because I'm such a morning person.
I got you.
And we started feeding the squirrels at the park, and now we go to the park every morning. We have these squirrel friends that join us. It's kind of amazing. I've developed a very weird writing process. Yeah. I don't like being precious about things, and I'm not waiting for like a muse to hit. I think it's very much it is a job. You go and you clock in, and like, it's the job I get paid to do. So even when I'm not getting paid to do a script, I know eventually I will. So this is my job,
Yeah, for sure. How much time do you spend outlining versus actually opening up final draft and cranking out script pages?
It depends on the project. I have a couple of projects I'm working on with other people, and those ones we do a ton of outlining, because it just doesn't make sense to start writing when you have multiple writers on a project. But if I'm doing it myself, way less outlining. I find that my first draft is a vomit draft, and then after that, I go back and do a lot more tweaking. I also generally don't write in Final Draft. I write in Fade In.
Oh, I gotcha. Okay, well, good. That's a nice little plug for Fade In.
Yes.
And what is your what does your development process look like? It sounds like you have some other writer friends, but when you get this vomit draft or even a little bit more polished draft, what does that look like for you? And how do you handle notes? I'm always curious to hear from writers how they take notes and how they take notes that they don't necessarily agree with.
Yeah, I mean, I have friends that I trust that I send my drafts to. I have about 3 or 4 friends that will read my stuff. And depending on the project, I know kind of who to send it to and who can respond and will respond quickly and who will give me just really positive feedback and who will rip it apart. So when I know what I really need, I choose who I'm going to send it to based on that. And then I, of course, send it to my manager. Mm-hmm. So I think because I come from an acting background, which in acting, in the world of acting, if you want notes as an actor because you want it to be collaborative. You want to make sure you're giving what you think you're giving. And so notes as an actor, I always feel like was a good thing. Like if someone could be like, oh, I see you doing this. Could you do this? Or, mm-hmm. whatever the notes are, because it is such a collaborative process, acting. And so for writing, I kind of view it the same way. I'm not fussy about the note. Like I'm excited to get notes. I'm excited to see what people think. And if I disagree with them, I just don't take them. I'm not, I usually know the story I'm trying to tell. And if they're giving me notes saying, you're not telling this story, then that's something I should be very aware of. If I'm not doing the thing I think I've set out to do. But if they're, by this point I have friends who don't give me notes that don't have to do with my story. Yeah. But it happens with obviously in development or when you're trying to sell a script, you get a lot of notes that sure. aren't necessarily part of the story.
Did you write this script specifically as a star vehicle for yourself?
I did not. No, I actually thought for a long time I might direct it, and then the company that bought it, Epic, really wanted. They had done a movie with Natasha Kermani, and they when they read the script, they were like, "We want Natasha to direct and we want you to star." And I was like, I didn't really write it for me to star in, but Natasha was very adamant. She'd seen me in the role because that's what she was told that the movie was going to be. And I loved her. We already knew each other before the process. So yeah, I ended up doing it. Yeah, was not planning on it. I think it's a very different character from my actual personality.
Gotcha. So take us a step back. I sort of missed just a little bit of what you just said there. Who did you take the script to? It sounds like, and did you take it to a bunch of people and these were the folks that liked it the most or were the most serious? But take us through that process. Once you had a draft, how did you actually get it to this production company and start to get the ball rolling on actually getting it into pre-production and ultimately production?
I mean, so it took me a couple years to get the draft done. So maybe 2 years of working on it. Mm-hmm. And then it was at a couple different places. So it was at a few places that at the end of the day we parted ways for whatever reason. Usually because 2 different places specifically that I felt like the notes and the ways they wanted me to change it weren't true to what I was trying to say. So I took it elsewhere. And then I had a friend who was in development at Epic Pictures. He had asked me if I had anything because he's a fan of my writing, and I sent it over, and they were like, yes, this is what we want. And I hadn't, there were a couple places that were interested at that moment, but Epic was very quick to send me a contract and be like, we want this, please sign this contract, which to me is what happens when someone's actually really excited. They want to get that movie made. They want to they don't want to send you a bunch of notes and have you do a bunch of free work. They will send you a contract, get the movie, and then maybe have you do some notes. But they're not excited about having you do free notes if they're not. I just think that's a red flag for me now.
Yeah, I feel the same way. You say that. I feel the same way. You're right. It sounds like with Epic Pictures, that was a pre-existing, some sort of a connection that probably you had made as an actor. Were these other companies that you parted ways? Was that sort of your template was you were just sending it out to the people the connections you had made basically in your career as an actor?
Sure, but also I'm a comic book writer. I've been writing graphic novels since 2009. Okay. So and that world crosses over in more ways than you think. So I had some connections through that. And then I also I wrote and directed a movie in 2013. And I wrote a little series for Nerdist. So I've been writing and directing through this whole time for about 10 years now. So it's connections through all of those kinds of things.
Gotcha.
But yeah. They're all pre-existing relationships, all people who usually come to me and ask me like, oh, do you have anything? We're looking. Or I'm like, oh, I have something. Would you be interested in, kind of thing?
Gotcha. I always just like to end up the interview by asking the guest if there's anything that you've seen lately that you thought was really good, maybe went a little under the radar. Anything from Netflix, Hulu, HBO that you've seen recently that you thought writers maybe should check out?
Well, I'm in pre-production for a movie right now, so I haven't seen anything.
No worries.
I start shooting on Monday. But I actually weirdly started watching a show called Patriot on Amazon at night when I'm just, it kind of felt like it went under the radar. It's, I would say Coen Brothers mixed with Wes Anderson, if you can describe something like that. It's great. And I think particularly for writers, it's very great. All the storylines kind of combine in this really weird way. And for those interested in cinematography, I actually think it's like one of the best looking shows I've seen in a really long time.
Okay, perfect.
So have to look into that.
Okay, perfect. Yeah, Patriot. And how can people see your new film, Lucky? Do you know what the release schedule is going to be like?
I do. Well, we're out. We're on Shudder. You can currently catch it on Shudder, which there's a bunch of great movies on there I could recommend as well. But then we're out on Blu-ray and DVD on August 3rd.
Perfect. And what's the best way for people to keep up with what you're doing? Twitter, Facebook, a blog, anything you're comfortable sharing, I will round up for the show notes. I've left everything, which would be my suggestion to all writers, except for Instagram. I'm on Instagram. You are on Instagram. Okay, perfect. So perfect. I'll round up for the show notes. Well, Brea, I really appreciate you coming on and talking with me today. Congratulations getting this film done, and good luck with all your future projects. All right. Thank you. Thank you. We'll talk to you later. Bye. SYS's From Concept to Completion screenwriting course is now available. Just go to www.sellingyourscreenplay.com/screenwriting course. It will take you through every part of writing a screenplay, coming up with a concept, outlining, writing the opening pages, the first act, second act, third act, and then rewriting. And then there's even a module at the end on marketing your screenplay once it's polished and ready to be sent out. We're offering this course in 2 different versions. The first version, you get the course, plus you get 3 analyses from an SYS reader. You'll get 1 analysis on your outline, and then you'll get 2 analyses on your first draft of your screenplay. This is just our introductory price. You're getting 3 full analyses, which is actually the same price as our 3-pack analysis bundle. So you're essentially getting the course for free when you buy the 3 analyses that come with it. And to be clear, you're getting our full analysis with this package. The other version doesn't have the analysis, so you'll have to find some friends or colleagues who will do the feedback portion of the course with you. I'm letting SYS Select members do this version of the course for free. So if you're a member of SYS Select, you already have access to it. You also might consider that as an option. If you join SYS Select, you will get the course as part of that membership too. A big piece of this course is accountability. Once you start the course, you'll get an email every Sunday with that week's assignment. And if you don't complete it, we'll follow up with another reminder the next week. It's easy to pause the course if you need to take some time off, but as long as you're enrolled, you'll continue to get reminders for each section until it's completed. The objective of the course is to get you through it in 6 months so that you have a completed, polished screenplay ready to be sent out. So if you have an idea for a screenplay and you're having a hard time getting it done, this course might be exactly what you need. If this sounds like something you'd like to learn more about, just go to www.sellingyourscreenplay.com/screenwriting course. It's all one word, all lowercase. I will, of course, link to the course in the show notes, and I will put a link to the course on the homepage up in the right-hand sidebar. On the next episode of the podcast, I'm going to be interviewing actor Courtney Gaines. You might remember him from Children of the Corn or Back to the Future. He's been acting for years and has an impressive resume, including a number of films that are coming out soon. So we talk about those a bit, as well as talking about his journey, getting cast in Children of the Corn, getting cast in Back to the Future, and again, how he's been able to turn this into a career that's spanned almost 40 years. The episode is going to be my crossover episode with my other podcast, The Right Cast. This episode I actually recorded for the Actor podcast, so it's more actor-centric than what you would normally hear on Selling Your Screenplay, but I thought it still might be interesting to screenwriters, and it will kind of give you a flavor of what the interviews look like over on The Right Cast. So if this is interesting to you, then I would say definitely check out, again, my other podcast, therightcast.com. Anyways, keep an eye out for that episode next week. That's the show. Thank you for listening.